The wind blew dry dust across the lonely street of Bramble Creek as Elena staggered out of the sheriff's office, her hands trembling, her heart breaking into pieces too sharp to ever heal. Her baby, her little boy, Matteo, was gone. Taken, not by bandits, not by fate, not by the cruel hands of nature, but by the very man who claimed she owed him a debt she never made, a debt inherited from her late husband, a desperate man who had buried his troubles deep until they rose like monsters to devour everything she loved. Victor Crow, the wealthiest and coldest ranch owner in the territory, had ridden into town at sunrise, presented forged papers, and announced that her late husband's unresolved loan would now be paid with the only thing of value she had, her child. Her screams had echoed down the street, but no one dared challenge Crow. Law's the law, people whispered. The sheriff refused to help. Woman, he muttered, you pick a fight with Crow, you won't live to see tomorrow. Elena had dropped to her knees in the town square, begging, sobbing, clawing the earth with her fingers until her nails bled, but Victor simply tipped his hat, signaled his men, and disappeared with her baby into the mountains like a nightmare riding away in the daylight. Word spread fast. Some pitied her. Most stayed silent. A woman alone had no power. A woman in debt had even less. And a mother without her child had nothing but pain. That night Elena lay on the cold floor of her tiny cabin, clutching Matteo's blanket, breathing in the faint scent of him, replaying every moment, his tiny hands, his first laugh, the way he grabbed her hair when he didn't want to sleep. Sleep never touched her eyes. Dawn barely broke before she rose again, desperate enough to try anything, even if it meant dying. But fate, unexpected, rough-edged, wild as a storm, was already riding toward Bramble Creek. A man known only in whispers. A man who lived in the high mountains where no law, no sheriff, and no evil had power. They called him the Ridge Rider, a giant of a man with cold eyes but a warm heart, a man who fought with his hands, spoke with few words, and protected the weak without asking for thanks. Elena didn't know his name, but she felt a strange shiver when a deep echo of hooves rolled through town near noon. People stopped what they were doing. Heads turned. Doors cracked open. Even the sheriff stepped out, wiping his brow nervously. Down the dusty road rode a tall figure on a black horse, broad-shouldered, rugged, carrying an aura of danger wrapped in silence. His name, Jonas Hale, passed through the crowd like a ghost of hope. Jonas dismounted slowly, scanning the town as if searching for something unseen. Elena didn't understand why her feet moved on their own, why her tears blurred her vision, why her voice escaped her throat like a prayer. "Sir, please," she whispered when she reached him. "They took my baby." Jonas turned his head slightly. His gaze fell on her, broken, trembling, desperate, and something sharp flickered in his eyes. "Who?" he asked, his voice low, steady, but filled with an undercurrent of danger. "Victor Crow," she choked. "He said my husband owed him money. I don't have anything. He took my son." The crowd around them fell silent. Everyone knew Crow was untouchable. Everyone expected Jonas to walk away, mount his horse, and leave Elena in her grief like everyone else had. But Jonas Hale was not everyone. Without a word, he walked past her, stepped into the sheriff's office, and after a few muffled sounds, voices raised, a chair breaking, fists meeting flesh, the sheriff stumbled out clutching his jaw while Jonas tossed a stack of torn papers to the dirt. "No debt," Jonas muttered. "Never was." The crowd gasped. Elena covered her mouth with trembling hands, unsure if she was dreaming. Jonas looked down at her. "Where is he?" She stuttered something, pointing toward the northern mountain trail. Jonas mounted his horse in one swift motion. "Get up," he said. "I'm taking you with me." Elena hesitated, fear warring with hope. I don't know how to ride like you." Jonas reached down, grabbed her hand, lifted her in front of him as if she weighed nothing. "Hold on." Before she could breathe, the horse leapt forward, charging toward the mountains, dust swirling behind them like a promise and a warning. Elena clung to him, her tears streaming, her heart beating in frantic hope. She didn't know if they would survive. She didn't know if they would reach Matteo. But for the first time since her child had been torn from her arms, she felt something she had forgotten existed, a chance. And she whispered into the wind, "Matteo, Mama's coming." The ride into the mountains felt like racing against the beating heart of fate itself as Jonas Hale guided his horse through rocky slopes, pine forests, and narrow ridges carved by time. Elena held tightly to the saddle, her knuckles white, her tears cold as fear and hope battled inside her. The deeper they rode, the quieter the world became. Only the wind, the drumming hooves, and Jonas's calm breathing broke the silence. He moved with purpose, as if he had already mapped every danger ahead. Elena wanted to ask how he knew these paths so well, but she sensed he wasn't a man who liked to talk about his past. Instead, she clung to the only thing that mattered, the faint thought of her baby, alone and frightened in the hands of a merciless man. When they reached the ridge overlooking Crow's hidden mountain compound, Jonas slowed the horse and dismounted. "Stay behind me," he said quietly, handing her a small dagger. "If anything happens to me, run." Elena shook her head fiercely. "I'm not leaving without my son." Jonas met her gaze for a moment, long enough for her to see a flicker of something soft beneath his steel exterior, then nodded. "Then stay close." They moved through the trees like shadows, the cold air stinging Elena's cheeks. Voices drifted from below. Crow's men were drinking around a fire, laughing as if they hadn't destroyed a mother's life. Elena's breath trembled. Jonas placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder before creeping forward. Crow's cabin stood at the center, a lantern glowing inside. A baby cried, soft but unmistakable. Elena slapped a hand over her mouth, her knees nearly giving out. "Matteo," she whispered. Her legs burst into motion, but Jonas grabbed her before she broke cover. "Not yet," he murmured. "We go together." But it was too late. One guard had seen them. "Hey!" the man shouted, reaching for his rifle. Jonas reacted like lightning, grabbing Elena and pulling her behind a boulder as bullets tore into the bark around them. The mountain erupted into chaos, shouts, gunfire, boots pounding the dirt. Elena curled into herself, panic clawing at her throat, but Jonas stood firm, using the terrain to shield her. He fought without hesitation, knocking one guard unconscious, disarming another, moving with the skill of a man shaped by hardship and survival. But they were outnumbered, and Crow himself stepped out of the cabin holding a pistol, and Matteo. Elena screamed, "Give him back. He's just a baby." Crow sneered, "You should have stayed in town, girl. This boy's worth more than you'll ever be." Jonas stepped forward, eyes burning with fury. "Put the baby down." Crow laughed. "Or what, mountain man? You'll kill me, then who'll hold the kid?" Jonas didn't blink. His voice dropped, cold, lethal, final. "I'll catch him. You'll be dead." Maybe Crow hesitated. Maybe fear cracked his confidence. But in that split second Jonas moved, faster than breath, slamming into Crow, knocking Matteo safely toward Elena's arms. She caught her son, collapsing to her knees as he wailed against her chest, and she sobbed so hard the world spun. Jonas and Crow struggled, fists flying, the ground trembling beneath their weight. Crow reached for his pistol. Elena screamed his name, "Jonas," and before Crow could fire, Jonas slammed him to the ground. Silence fell. The remaining guards scattered into the trees, too frightened to fight a legend. Elena ran to Jonas, still clutching Matteo. Jonas wiped the blood from his brow, looking at her with relief softening his fierce eyes. "You okay?" he asked. She nodded, crying too hard to speak, pressing her baby's tiny face to her neck. Jonas looked down, almost shy, almost unsure of where to put his hands. "He's safe now," he said. Elena shook her head. "We're safe because of you." When they returned to town, people whispered in awe. The sheriff couldn't look Jonas in the eye. Mothers held their children closer. And Elena, she walked with her son in her arms, her head high, her heart filled with gratitude for the man who had walked through hell to bring her baby back. As Jonas mounted his horse to leave, Elena stepped forward. "Please, don't go." Jonas stared at her, searching her face, searching his own heart. "You don't owe me anything," he whispered. Elena touched his hand gently. "I don't want to repay you. I want to thank you. And I want you to stay, because now we're family to you, whether you admit it or not." Jonas hesitated, then lifted Matteo gently, cradling the child who reached for his beard with curious fingers. Something inside the mountain man finally softened. He sighed, nodded once, and murmured, "Then I'll stay." And as the sun set behind the ridge, Elena realized something powerful. Sometimes heroes didn't wear badges or live in towns. Sometimes they lived in the mountains, scarred but kind, waiting for a moment when fate would call them to save someone broken, and help them rebuild their life. And to every viewer listening right now, if this story touched your heart, if you felt the pain, the hope, and the victory, please subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us bring more emotional stories like this to life. Don't miss what comes next.